Good morning, team. How you doing? Hey, how's it going? So before we get started, I'll while we're waiting for more people to come on, Zach, I see you're here. You're here on time.
Yeah,
You want to unmute yourself and give maybe a 90-second summary of what you thought it would be like and what you experienced when we spent last Monday afternoon together?
yeah, definitely. When we initially started, my anxiety was through the roof. I thought, people were gonna slam the door in my face, and it actually ended up being a completely different experience entirely. Everybody was so friendly. They wanted to talk. You just had to kind of ask the right questions to start, cracking them open a little bit. And I feel like you set a great example for that, when we were doing it. So, again, thank you for your time that day.
No worries. So, just to give everybody a little history about what we did on Monday. Zach.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we went door knocking over in Cranford for 2 hours. The way we did it, we knock on the door and give them about 7 seconds and start walking away. And if they came to the door later, we would go back. But I mean, we hit a lot of houses, and yeah, that's pretty much what we were doing, just door knocking, trying to build some relationships and get some business too.
And what was the outcome from our almost 2 hours together?
Yeah, it was good. So we got in front of, I'd say like 10 people, but like the third to last house that we went to, the guy wants a CMA. He wants us to come back. He was sitting there. His son came out as well. So we got the phone numbers, contact information. And, I'm actually in the process of setting up going back to take a look at the house in person as well. So it had a good turnout, right? Because even if one of them ends up being good, that's still super productive for a 2 hour time period.
Yep, I would agree with you. And you want to share what we left there with? You have
Say that one more time, Rob.
you have a lead, right?
Yes, that's what that's what I meant mentioned before. We got a lead. The house is probably going to be worth about $750,000 too, so it's a very good one.
Cool. Very, very well. So I'm going to go to is Jay, you're on, right? Jay. Jay, can you hear me? We can't hear you.
How about now?
All right, I can hear you now. I want to make sure there's no echo. Go ahead, say something.
Hold on, let me get.
We got a little echo going on.
I know. Come on, turn off, would you? No.
All right, I'm gonna mute you, Jay. I'll come back to you in a minute.
Okay.
So before we get started, we have Pavla here as well. And Pavla, how are you? Are you able to unmute yourself? Pavla?
Oh, I'm sorry. I muted myself by mistake.
No worries. So while Jay's getting set up, I'm gonna kind of ask a couple of questions for you, and a lot of these are more about mindset. So when you begin a conversation, Pablo, how much of your energy is focused on, coming away with a sale or converting it to a lead?
I would say any conversation I start is there to be interested in the other person and to help them. So for that to become a lead, sale, or database, it's more like an outcome of
So
it.
So your motivation is to have a conversation and see if you could help them. That's kind of what I was driving at. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of
And-
people, I think a
And it
lot of,
took, Rob, I just want to say that it didn't come out like it took me a couple years to actually get the concept of giving. So
right. And so what is your goal of a conversation, Pavla?
the conversation, the goal of each conversation to get to know something about the person and see if I can help them with absolutely anything. Sometimes it's even recommending a dog sitter. So just anything.
So it's, you want to be there to be a value, not to
Yep.
sell, right? Now,
Yeah.
are you concerned about your audience bringing up objections or rejecting you when you're out there having conversations?
No,
Now,
actually, at the beginning, they were just doing it and closing the doors on me, and now it's kind of amazing because I feel like I'm still the same person with the same accent, still the same size, meaning tall, and they are no to answer no, Rob, absolutely no.
fantastic. Do you do you believe people will be upset, or excuse me, did you believe people would be upset when you began unsolicited conversations? Or I should say, do you believe people will be upset? So somebody is walking a dog, somebody's running, you knock on their door. Is
Rob, people will be upset, but it has nothing to do with you. So the people that are most upset won't even open the door. So, I mean, you cannot change people. So I don't really, so to answer your question, some will be upset, but it has nothing to do with me. But most of them are very pleasant. I would say 95%. So not concerned about the 5.
and were you personally ever of the belief that your audience would be curt, mean, upset, unreceptive to a conversation? And do you think that when it happened before, it could have been biased by your own belief system?
Yeah, Rob, if I don't set my mindset and believe at the outcome before, sometimes it happens even nowadays if I don't do my affirmation. And if I don't truly believe that I'm there to help them, like let's say if you are in a really, really bad mood and you just think you will do your 20 doors, good luck. You're not even gonna get one person that you can help. So again, back to the question, what was it?
So the question was, when you started out, do you think that your own belief system that
Oh
people
yeah,
be annoyed that
definitely.
you're knocking on their door influenced the outcome of a lot of the conversations?
I would say it's yeah, what you put out there, you get back. So yes, 100%.
Okay. And if I told you, Pablo, that the science shows that 93% of communication is nonverbal, it's body language and tonality, would you believe that or not believe that?
Yeah, well, I have seen that way before you mentioned. So yeah, of course I believe that. It had proven in my life.
Okay. And lastly, and we're going to come back for some questions later, Pablo, but do you think conversations and outcomes are more based on logic or emotion?
Emotions, 100%. Not maybe 100, okay, but most of it is emotion.
It's high emotion, right? And
Yeah, I mean, you can come with all the data you want, but if you present it as a jerk, they'll call the cops on you.
or even if you're tentative or nervous, don't you think people can sense that?
Oh, I have seen it myself, the nervous people all through their life, and I feel bad for them. They need to just believe
And
in themselves.
and the last question I have for you is, do you think it's possible for us as an industry to care about people we never met?
I'm gonna give you a simple answer, yes, because then it's gonna make me think, oh, in a big answer.
Because if you think about the whole concept, when you have a client, right, and this goes to the entire audience, I think, a lot of what puts us in this industry is because we're nurturing and caring people we want to help, right? But why do we have to wait until they're a client before we can put ourselves out there and say, we just want to help, we care about what's happening, and if we get rejected, we still care, right? Isn't that a paradigm shift that's hard
No,
to?
it's like if I was saying to you, once I become your wife, I'll be caring. You need to care before.
Yep.
I mean, that's not the, but you know what I mean. Once you become somebody's girlfriend
Yep.
or a wife, I mean, you have to do it way before.
Yeah, but you can't get to that point if you don't care beforehand, right? That's what your point is.
No, it's something that has to be come from within. It's nothing that you put on your board, say, okay, now you're my client, I'll care. It's more, now you're my client, I'm getting commission, but it shouldn't be the driving force.
And can you just share with the group, like, I believe it was August of last year, we went out door knocking, right? Was that about right?
Rap, I'm not analytical, so yes, it was hot.
In the summertime, we went out door knocking, and I think it even started to rain halfway through it. And we had a really great, awesome day, right? I have a picture of you smiling with 10 names, correct?
Okay, we always do, yeah.
And then when I came back to do a follow-up, share with the group where we went door knocking and what we went around.
Oh yeah, so after me and Rap door knocked, I get a phone call and the guy says, no, it was a woman. I met you and you left your car here and I would like to sell my house. And I'm thinking, okay, so, sure. My first question to them was, I didn't ask your information. And they said, no, you just mentioned that you sold one home and then you gave me your information. Anyhow, when the rap came back, we went to door knock just sold because it happened to go under contract, closed, and then you showed up again, the week it closed. So we did the door knocking. But I don't know what exactly you're referring to, Rap. Refresh me, because there's so much.
So what I was referring to is we went door knocking for an hour and a half or so the first time, and we talked to a lot of people. Everybody was friendly, and somebody actually called you back from our conversations, correct? And you wound
But
up,
they all call back, or usually I keep their number. Yeah.
and you wound up, what was that, like almost 600,000, right?
I think it was 550 at 3.5%.
550, 3.5%. Not a bad hour and a half use of time. So that's what I'm
No,
just.
but you gotta love it, Rob. You can't do it for the money because it's like if you go to the gym just to get in shape. If you don't love it,
Right. But for the audience that we have here, Pavla, they need to have some positive affirmation about what can happen. And I don't want to have the expectation that, hey, you go door knocking once or twice and people are going to call you, because that's a setup for failure. The positive part is if you're doing it for the right reasons, you can do it consistently. And this is not a door knocking conversation. This is a conversation about communication. And this
yeah,
can,
there's gotta be consistent and sustainable habits that will compound over time when you do door knock. So it cannot be like today I'll do 100 doors, meaning 100 doors that will talk to me, because you're gonna burn out. So make something consistent. And it actually, to answer that question, Rob, it took me, I would say 7 months, actually 8 months. But I don't think it's gonna take so long now. Now I'm getting deals like right away. It took 8 months because I was not good at the doors. Now when I get, so it took me 8 months till I start getting the deals from that. So that you cannot give up on that. Yeah.
right. And it's not about, I mean, door knocking is just the medium for the communication. The concept is having confidence without being arrogant, caring, and being comfortable having conversations without having fear. Because
And enthusiasm, you're forgetting that.
enthusiasm and caring, yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
what's your level of fear when you're out there knocking on strangers' houses?
I'm fearless. I mean, I don't have a fear. I love, my favorites are the no soliciting or I'm mean, don't come, don't enter. So, I always, I don't have fear. I at the beginning, I have to say a little bit ahead, but I think, Rob, when you make it as a custom, you do your 20, 20, 20, however, it's like, doing your 6 miles every day. You don't think rain or shine. you don't have time to put fear involved. So no
Fantastic.
fear.
Well, if you can stick around, we're gonna have some questions and answers at the end. Anybody have any questions for Pavla at this point? So one thing I'd like everybody to write down is, communication is 93% nonverbal. And basically the 93% that's nonverbal is simply put body language and tonality. And has anybody ever watched a prospector and they don't sit down when they make their calls, they stand up? Anybody ever
Of
see
course.
that or hear of that?
Yeah, of course.
And why do you think, Pavla, people stand up when they make calls rather than sitting down?
Well, because your energy is higher when you're standing as opposed to when I'm here just relaxing and sitting.
Right. So people can feel the energy from you standing versus sitting on your duff making the calls. And that's part of the body language that is
Communication.
just as valid over the phone as it is if you were in front of somebody. Okay.
Definitely.
Any questions for Pavla? I'm going to go to Jay now, which is going to talk a little bit about a different medium of communication. All right, Pavla, you've done an excellent job. There's no questions. Jay, have you gotten rid of the echo?
I did.
All right, fantastic. So Jay, you remember back a while when we used to have the masterminds, we used to gather around the conference table, and a lot of our stuff was communication to try to overcome phone leads or leads that wouldn't pick up the phone or leads that would tell us to, go pound salt, right? Do you remember, like, what was one of the first things that we did to make sure that we were successful? Did we call once? Did we wait a week to call? Share that with you.
You called 3 times, which totally works. And like you said, fear keeps people from doing it. Oh, I don't want to bother them. Well,
So
know,
how long would you wait in between the calls? Because I think our Florida team here probably has no idea what you're talking about.
it was immediate. It was really right after the other. They don't pick up. You don't leave a voicemail. You just call them right back. Okay. You do it 3 times. Okay. And as you kind of educated me about, so a lot of times they pick up on the second time. It's like somebody must be really wanting to get a hold of me. Okay. And or the third time, but I remember you pointing out that you wanted to see that in the notes in KV Core that you had called 3 times. So now I actually have grown. I call 3 times, I send a text, and I send an email when I'm trying to get a hold of somebody.
And how often are people like over the top nasty when you call them 3 times in a row?
Almost never.
Almost never.
Almost never. They will just kind of say, hey, it's not a good time. Can I call you back? And I'll ask them again, your objection handling. Okay, what's a good time to call you? Right? Can I get a couple of questions answered? What kind of house are you looking for? Blah, blah, blah. And then they just start talking. And then usually you can get the information you want.
So one of the major phone objections that you'll have is somebody will say, hey, Jay, you caught me at a bad time. I'm going to put you on the spot. How did we overcome that?
How did we? Okay. Well, what's a good time to call you back?
Can you call me back after 5 o'clock?
After 5, sure. Can I ask you a couple questions quick so I'm prepared when I call you back? With the answers that you're looking for.
Sure. You get an A+ there, Jay.
I do.
Because when you say, hey, I understand you can't talk right now, when's a better time to talk? Right? They give you some time. And then you went and said, hey, so I can prepare for that call. Let me ask you a couple of quick questions. And almost never, unless they're legitimately somewhere where it's impossible for them to talk, they're going to answer a couple of quick questions. And what does a couple of quick questions usually lead to? A conversation, right?
Correct. And it's all about conversations. I mean, what did you back then you were doing the research, and I think it's every 11 conversations you should get a lead. Is that accurate? Right? Every 11. If you're out at a restaurant, you're around friends, every 11 conversations should turn into a lead. Either.
Yeah,
Oh.
and how about, let me just pivot for a second here, because we did door knocking once, and even the attire influenced it, right?
Look,
You share with the audience like what happened really quickly. I don't want to go too deep, but
my door knocking experience with you was, yeah, that was over at Village Gate in Edison. It was a townhouse complex. I don't know. We knocked on a lot of doors. So probably about 45 minutes in, Rob goes, all right, listen, okay. Now he had already gotten, I don't know, 5 or 6 different contacts and people who were looking to either move up or sell or whatever. But he goes, all right, we're going to break up now. You're going to go knock on some doors and I'm going to go knock on some doors. So I go knock on doors and they slam the door in my face. Okay. He tells me, I'll tell you why later. He thinks they slammed the door in my face. Okay. I come around the corner and what do I see? Rob with his little notepad and his pen. Okay. And the woman's writing all this stuff down. And Rob looks at me and says, see what happens when you leave me alone? And he's getting all this information because there was a $450,000 condo and they wanted to move up to a 750 kind of thing. And he got all our contact information. And then Rob's like, all right, Jay, we got to go. Okay. So he looks at me square, takes his hands by my shoulder and he looks at me right in the eye and he goes, Jay, you might want to lose the tie. And he tells me that, right? And I'm like, really, dude? Okay, because that's my tie is what keeps me from talking too much. See, okay, I can't talk as much. So it reminds me to stop talking and to listen. And so I'm sitting there and I'm shaking my head and I'm like, F you, Rob, because he's telling me not to look so salesman-y, which is true, because he's got his little baseball cap on, crooked, and his little polo shirt on. And then so he jumps in the car and 2 minutes later, my phone rings as I'm standing at the next door and he looks up at me and I'm like, Rob, he just left. And he goes, so I pick up the phone. He goes, Jay, you got a pen and a paper? Really, Rob? Why? Yeah, he goes, well, I was driving out of here and there were these 2 people walking with polos that said Honda on it. And I talked to them and the one girl's looking for a house in Piscataway. Can you write this down and follow up with her, please? Okay. And so here I was just flabbergasted with the fact that he has become so good at it because he's done so much practice at it that he can drive out of a community and stop to talk to some people on the side of the road who are doing some other work and come up with a lead. So the leads are out there if you have enough conversations, and it's about the conversation at some point.
So, yeah, and you, Jay, thanks for sharing. And I think part of it is that nonverbal piece is also dressing to be a little bit less intimidating. Like you want to be a little bit more approachable. And I'm not being critical, but I'm just saying, it's the whole package. The first time I went, I wore a suit and tie and dress shoes. And number one, it was uncomfortable. Number two, the response rate was not as good because I wasn't approachable in the community.
Right.
And whether it's talking to people in Starbucks, ShopRite, Publix, or whether it's returning your phone calls and having the courage to, for me, it was really rough to call 3 times in a row. It's like people are going to bite my head off. But the reality is that they don't. It's more of what you said. And if somebody says, hey, did you just call me 3 times in a row? If you say, oh, I'm sorry, you're going to get annihilated. If you say, hey, you know what, Jay, I just wanted to make sure I got in touch with you to see if I could be of any help. Oh, okay. That sounds pretty safe, right? And part of my courage came from, the old bricks and mortar shopping. You go into a mall, you walk into a store, the salesperson comes up to you and says, can I help you? What's your conditioned response?
Get out of here.
I'm just looking, right? So, but how often do people go into the mall if they don't want to buy something? It's an analogy for the process. Okay. So Jay, thank you for sharing that. And it goes to prove that it's not just in-person conversations, it's all communications in the way that you kind of come across. And for years, if I hadn't learned this earlier on, I was trying to find the good leads. I was looking for the gold, but the gold is really in the communication. It's not in where the lead is. It's not as a realtor.com lead. Better
It's in my mindset. It's in my mindset, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, the mindset drives the communication, right?
Right. So the question I ask myself in all situations, going to a listing appointment, going to a buyer, is, can I be of service to this person? You know, and I end every conversation when I've helped people and showed people houses, have I been of service to you? So it comes from having a servant mindset. I'm here to serve other people, because me serving myself, I end up with commission breath, right? Isn't that what you've taught me? Okay, and nobody likes commission breath, right? You know?
Yep. Yep.
But if I come at it with an attitude of how can I be of service to this person with whatever's going on in their life? And that's the other thing about recognizing that the communication is about them, right? If they're having a bad day, maybe I can make their bad day a better day, because they're cranky and grumpy about something. And maybe I can kind of show them that, you know, there is a difference out there, and we can serve people in that way. And that's really what we are, is in a service, you know, service business. So I'm here to serve other people in whatever capacity they want me to serve. If they don't want me to serve, that's great too. Okay. If they don't want to work with me, that's okay too. It doesn't bother me. There is no fear in my brain of being rejected, because I'm just trying to be of service. And if they can't recognize that, then maybe I don't want to work with them.
So Jay,
Maybe they're going to drag me in.
Jay, were you with us?
Well,
Were you with us back in the day when we had some people download the app, tape a call?
that was 3 years ago.
Probably
Yes.
it was before the pandemic,
Yes.
for sure.
It
So,
was.
So I'm trying to help as many people as I can, because I see the value in communication. And this 3 calls in a row, some people were not getting the right response from that. And I remember, I won't say the last name, but there was an agent named Lois who was struggling tremendously. She came to every training. She was a little bit tentative. And I'm like, I don't understand it, Lois. Why don't you get this app and why don't you record the calls, right? And she got the app, she recorded the calls. And one day she comes into our mastermind, and you would have thought, like, you know, the wolf that just ate the rabbit. She was like, hey, I'm going to prove to you that this doesn't work. And she had this call recorded, and she called somebody 3 times in a row. The woman answers the phone and said, did you just call me 3 times in a row? And she hesitates. She's like, well, yeah. And then the expletive, don't ever blank call me again, right? Is what she said. And we come to this call session, and for me, it was clear. Jay, you froze? Or am I froze? Zach, can you hear me? Give me
Yeah,
thumbs.
I hear you. You're
We
good.
can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Jay froze.
So this lady has this really bad response from it, and she's like, Rob, it doesn't work, you see? And I was just like, no, that's not the case. It's the way that you answered. If somebody said, did you just call me 3 times in a row? And you say, yeah, they're gonna steamroll you. If you say, hey, Zach, I just wanted to make sure I got in touch with you to see if I could help. Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to call this woman in front of the office full of agents. We had people standing in the hallway. It was a full house. And I call this woman on speakerphone, and she answers, can I help you? I'm like, yeah. She's like, you just call me 3 times. Yeah, my name's Rob. I just wanted to see if I could be of any help to you. Right. And she was a school teacher, and she was whispering because she was in class. And she told me that she was a single mom looking to buy a first house, needed to be in Cranford, wanted to stay in the same elementary district. The same exact person that told Lois to don't ever blank and call me again. So I'm a very analytical person. It shattered my whole concept of finding the good leads, because it's not the good leads. It's what do we do with those leads? How do we engage those leads that determines the result, right? And you might even ask yourself, some of the people that you have as clients, you know, maybe they're a little bit unmanageable, disrespectful. You know, some of them maybe we don't need to work with, but some of them may be the way that we engage them and the expectations that we set, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, if you put out the vibe, and I'll have this conversation with you, Zach, you put this vibe out like, hey, you know what, Zach, if we decided to work together and I decided to sell your house for 800,000 here, right? The most important thing to me would be that I exceed the expectation that if we do work together, that, you know, you refer me and I'm your agent for life. And you ever hear anybody talking about real estate, you want to go out of your way to refer me. It's not to make a commission on 800,000. If that's the way that you feel, let's not even enter into this. Like, I don't know if I would say those words like that. I think it'd be a little bit obnoxious, but if you put the vibe out, like, I'm not here for one commission, I'm here for the relationship. It changes the whole trajectory of every conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important too. And there's, that's where, a lot of other agents can go wrong. They smell like they're after the money instead of, being there to, be compassionate and be of service to the client.
Yep. And you've called a lot of online leads, right? In
Yeah.
your career?
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess that early on, you probably made some mistakes, right?
A lot. Yeah.
And what did you learn about, online leads that are basically, there's no relationship established yet? Like, share with me how that communication impacts somebody that doesn't know you, that may not even take your call because it's a unfamiliar phone number, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it comes down to the tonality that you use too. You have to actually believe the words that you're saying, right? You have to, portray to them that you're there to help them achieve their goals. And I've had a lot of success over time because in the beginning I thought, you had to be like the Wolf of Wall Street almost, right? Where you had to know the magic words to pull people in. But honestly, the right words are, how can I help? And I think that goes way farther than knowing any, quick close or quick pull in or anything like that. So that's what I've had the most success with doing.
And with your experience, how many people do you think that you can convince to buy or sell that aren't going to be buying or selling?
None. I mean, I don't know, right? So I guess it's all about your delivery, right?
But I think
So,
you got to trust. I think you have to trust your instinct. Like, you can't
yeah,
convince somebody by using Wolf of Wall Street words,
no,
sell their house or buy a house. In my humble opinion, I don't think you can do that.
nope.
Okay. And if you've ever been in a situation where you push somebody too hard and maybe they found a reason to cancel and you spent a lot of time for nothing,
Yeah,
right? You get them to list their house and it's overpriced and they don't want to reduce it because they don't really want to move.
yeah.
Or you get them a great offer and they say, you know what, we decided we're going to pull it off the market. I've seen this happen. So,
Spite you.
huh?
They'll spite you,
Yes,
for
they
doing.
will. So the next challenge for my guests here are, this is for Pavla, Zach, and Jay, and by association, I want everybody on this call to look forward to having conversations with strangers. Okay, and having an appropriate, not salesy conversation, because we don't want to be a secret agent, do we?
No.
Right. Can you talk to somebody in Publix or Starbucks about, hey, I just want to introduce myself. My name's Zach. I'm with Remax. I want to see if you know anyone I can help. Right. Like, if you can have more of those conversations, to Jay's point, and I think it might be, if it's, random conversations, it might be like 1 out of 40, 1 out of 50 will wind up in a closed transaction. And if it's people who've expressed interest, it's maybe 1 out of 8 to 1 out of 12. So if it's people who inquired on Zillow and you have conversations, it's going to be obviously a lot higher than if it's just talking to somebody in the Starbucks line.
Yeah.
But if you're in the Starbucks line anyway, don't you think you ought to, have a conversation without having any fear?
And Rob, one thing you're forgetting when you are dealing with the leads through the internet, that they are all cutting the commission. They are doing it for less than 6%. As opposed to when you meet them in person, they don't mind paying the 6%.
Right? And obviously you never discuss that until you have that in person.
No, but it's just something because you get them instead of like having all the agents going down.
Yep. So I pivoted, years and years ago, and I pivoted because I wanted to help. And I broke through my own mindset, because my own mindset was, if I'm at home having dinner and somebody knocks on my door, I'd probably be mean to them. But you know what? If Jay, Zach, or Pavla did it and they smiled and said, "Hey, I just want to see if I can help," you know what? I would melt. I would literally melt and say, "Wow, that is so cool." And Zach, how many people were in their house over 20 years?
Almost I'd say 80% of everybody that we saw, they're lifers in that area. They don't they don't really move out of there.
What was one of the questions I asked the people that said they were there for over 20 years?
Oh, how many agents have come over the course of that time to knock on your door and see if they can help? And everybody said 0.
0.
Yeah, every time.
Wasn't that like a real shock?
Yeah, that blew my mind, especially since that there was one guy who literally listed his house the day before. Like we were basically one day late or a few days late at that point too. So, it just shows how much opportunity is really out there, and it's a lot.
How about the guy that opened the door with a real attitude?
Oh my God. Yeah, this guy, like he was puffing his chest out. He was like very defensive, and literally I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. I mean, Rob cracked him open so good. At the end, he's like, "Oh, let me get a card right here. Take my information down." I mean, he really did a complete 180, because he probably thought we were there to try to sell him something, right? And as soon as Rob used the words, "How can I help you?" I mean, it was just a complete paradigm shift after that. So yeah. Big difference.
So hopefully you can see the emotion that Zach has here. And that's not about, Rob having masterful words. It's just about having conversations and, facing what we normally fear and having those conversations on how we can help people.
Hey, Rob, you were forgetting one of the key to your lead whispering, we call it around here, Zach, just so you know, because he does it in the stupid meetings with the Zillow calls. He does it with Vulcan. He does it knocking on doors. It's asking questions, right? Because if you notice, that's what he does. He's got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Okay. And then he waits for the awkward pause and doesn't try to fill in the quiet pause. He waits for the answer to get them to talk, which is the majority of what you have to learn to do.
Yeah.
Is give those people the opportunity to fill that awkward pause, right? As soon as he asked that question to that guy, how many people, did the guy open up and start talking?
Yeah. I mean, as soon as he started asking his questions, like little by little, and the more time that went by, the more they were just kind of going on and on about it.
And so it's not about me talking, it's about having them talk, is what I've seen in the years of watching Rob do his lead whispering, which is really annoying, but that's because he practices it and does it a lot and gets really good at it, which we can all do if we follow his lead.
Yeah.
But anyway, was that helpful, Rob? Because those were 2 key components, is asking the questions and not talking myself, and then listening for the answer and letting the awkward pause just hang there. Okay, because the first guy who talks loses. Isn't that what you taught us?
Yeah, it usually the case.
Right?
Yeah. Perfect example.
And this is not just door knocking, phone conversations. This is, if you were to tell me, could you be, slightly above average at knowing how to sell a house and be a master communicator, or you were slightly above average at communication and knew everything about selling a house, who's going to be the rock star?
The communication guy
Or lady, yes,
or
Yeah.
lady
Asian person.
person.
And it's uncanny at how it's not gimmicky. It's not,
Salesy.
it's not, you know, you win, they lose, right? It's about everybody wins. And unless you feel like you're grossly overpaid in real estate for what you do, then this is a skill that you must master that most people don't put high on their radar list, right? Because if you can have great communication, you can win. And it reminds me of, you know, and Jay, I think we had some listing appointments where we had some really key pivotal communication points. But I remember this one extremely well. This was a total setup, and most people could have took the bait on it. I'm out at a listing, and the premise of the appointment was that, you know, don't come out here unless you can list my house for 3.9%. And this was Mark Feingold. I don't know if Mark, are you on the call? Probably not. But Mark said, you know, Rob, can you help me with this? I really need to, you know, his quote was, I would do it for free just so I get my name out in that area. I don't know if anybody's so hungry to get into an area where you would basically do a lost leader to just get your foot in the door. I know there are some of you out there, you know, maybe it's in, you know, a $5 million house you might do for almost nothing so you can get in that area. So Mark said, Rob, I would do it for 3.9 or less. I just want to get established in this community. I think it's $1.2 million market value house. So we go out there, we have the whole conversation going, we get down to commission. And, you know, I say, pick the commission for the person that brings us the buyer, they pick that. And I say, you know, our commission is 2.5%. You know, when would you like to get the property on the market? And the husband goes to the wife and says, wow, that's going to be $60,000. That's a lot of money, right? And what do most of us say at that point?
Cut it.
Huh?
Like some people will drop the commission after that point because they start, you know, thinking like that's too high. They get nervous and they sell themselves short a little bit rather than present the value of themselves.
So Zach, how would you handle that?
So being a victim of, you know, having had cut my commission in the past because, you know, a seller has said something like that, you know, something that I like to say sometimes is, you know, we'll get to that in a moment and you're going to love it, you know, and that kind of allows me some time to show some more value in myself before I have to like get nervous and just, you know, slice myself down to like, you know, 4% or, you know, possibly even worse. So that's what I've done in that position before. It's like, you know, you got to demonstrate your value to, you know, justify it a little bit, I guess you could say.
So imagine this, Zach, and I want to open the floor up here because this is a really important concept. So you work hard to get an opportunity to have a listing appointment. You know, you do a great job at the conversation, right? You get down to the dollars and cents at the end, and they say a comment like, boy, 60,000, that's a lot of money. What do you think most people would say when somebody says, boy, that's 60,000, that's a lot of money? Anybody want to volunteer? Do you think some agents would say, hey, you know, I'm going to do drone photography, I'm going to do a Matterport, I'm going to put it on 87? Anybody think that that's what a lot of agents would do?
Yeah, I could see that. Saying that.
Rationalize and justify the expense.
So let me ask you, if I were to go there, and this was our competitor there was DeFalco Real Estate. They send out these annoying 3.9% listing postcards. If I was to say, you know, we're going to do drone photography, we're going to put it on 2,700 websites. I'm going to market it to the entire community. I'm going to do a mailing. As soon as I finished bloviating, what do you think the husband or wife would have said? Because I know this is, I've been there. I know what's I can predict the future.
They said they were going to do that too.
Exactly. And what did that get you? Nothing.
Nothing.
The
Right.
more you give, the more they go after, yeah.
Right.
Like that.
Well, so why, the question becomes, why am I communicating this? It's going to be the end result of the communication, right?
Mm-hmm. So what I did is I just stared, and it probably seemed like 10 minutes, and maybe it was only a minute. And then I went and I said, you know, when would you like to have the first open house? This weekend or next? And they're like, can we get it done this weekend? I'm like, we can make that happen. And we never discussed it. I swear to God.
That's great.
But that's
But it was the awkward pause that was the inflection point, correct?
yes, because I made them feel awkward for asking the question, right?
Yeah, flip it back on them. That's good.
Right. Because
And
I have all the dialogues of, oh, well, you know, we rip $1 in half and say, I got to pay that. Does the seller really give a shit about that?
No.
No, they just want to feel good about the experience. And at the end of the day, and I think I spoke to your dad about this one, Zach,
Yeah.
is do the customers remember what their commission rate was, or do they remember the experience?
Experience all day.
So if you cut your commission and you still got them to the closing table, but you compromised on communication, you had a little bit of a rough ride,
Yep.
but they got a good deal, they're not going to equate that. Hey, you know what? I saved money. It was worth it. They're going to say, you know what? Real estate in New Jersey is rough, you know, or, you know, Zach's a nice guy, but he must be super busy because it was a tough transaction.
Yeah.
So you compromise elsewhere, right? Don't give in on the value that we have. And the way that we protect our value is by communicating.
Yeah.
And I think, Jay, you had also made a really observant comment about stop selling and ask better questions, right?
Well, right. I'm not there to sell. I'm there to be of service, which doesn't mean I need to talk about anything per se, right? It's about getting them to communicate about what their needs, wants, and desires are, and how I can fit that to the puzzle of getting them over the hump and to their next place. You know, I always communicate with people about, I'm like Scotty from Star Trek. I teleport people to new realities. So who else would you want to teleport with? Jay, who knows how to operate the machine to get you to the next property with with the highest price and the least amount of stress and the shortest amount of time, or some guy who's giving you a discount commission. And that's the other thing is, again, mindset, Rob, regarding my commission. As you've taught me, I have to value myself. Okay, we have a local agent here that I'm very good friends with, and she has a tendency to discount her commission. And it was a conversation with you that said, hey, Jay, what does an unsold listing cost you? And he made me sit there with him and do the math. And I come to learn that it's $3,500. So if I take a listing, I'm risking $3,500 of my money to get in bed with this crazy person.
Yep.
So now it is a conversation. I'm going to decide whether we're working together or not, because I don't know if I want to risk $3,500 of my hard-earned money that I work very hard for to work with you, because you're a crazy person.
So Jay, I think you know, thank you for paying attention. And one of the communication styles that you just brought out was when somebody has an objection, okay, it's great if you could say either A, like Zach said, we'll cover it later, or, and this is worth writing down for everybody who doesn't know it, okay, especially on a listing. If somebody gives you any objection whatsoever, if you were to say, hey, you know, I know that's really important to you, but Jay, can you put these in order of priority from highest to lowest? Selling your house for the absolute highest possible price, selling it in the shortest period of time, or having the least stress during a transaction. Could you put those in order from highest to lowest? Right? And what does it do? It changes the subject. Okay. And this is really, really, really worth writing down. And the answer to all three of those is the same. So you can just take a breather while they're, the husband and wife or the owners are discussing, hey, obviously price is important, but is that the most important? Because, we have the dog and we have the kids and it's really stress, right? So they come back to you and they say, I will repeat it, Rena. They come back to you and they say this, this, and that, but the answer is always the same. So the question is, and thank you, Jay. So, Mr. and Mrs. Home Seller, can you tell me in order of priority, first through third, how you would rank these in order of importance? Selling your house for the absolute highest price, not leaving any money on the table is number one. Number two is selling it in the shortest period of time. And number three is having the least amount of stress throughout the transaction. If you could put those in order of highest, mid, and lowest priority, I could help you out. So they're going to have a discussion about it. And, one solution solves all three. And I can prove that to you. Because if you price the house right and it sells quickly with multiple offers, is that more or less stressful than waiting for an offer to come in?
Less.
If you only have to have it on the market for 4 days for showing as opposed to 4 weeks, is that more or less stressful for a home seller?
Less.
Hey, Jay, can you enter those questions in the chat for our audience? And then
Sure.
thirdly is if your house sells quickly and we're able to cherry pick the most qualified buyer that's going to give us the least resistance during the transaction, is that going to be less stressful for you? Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
So they're willing to waive the home inspection because we have more offers. So the magic words is, hey, if you could put these in order of priority, selling it for the absolute highest price. Number two is having as much of a stress-free transaction as possible. Or number three, selling it in the shortest period of time. Can you share with me what's the most important, the second most, and what's the least important of those three?
And Rob, is this what you're saying in like when they're talking about the commission, like when they say, oh, like that, for example, oh, that $60,000 is, we're paying out in commission. So then would you end up saying, as kind of like a rebuttal to that, what's your priority from highest to lowest, this, and that? Is that like the segue right there?
I think the segue there, Zach, is more in terms of the pricing model as opposed to the fee-based model.
Gotcha. So like that thing you were saying when we were talking about like lottery style, fair market style, and auction style, and then show them the evidence.
Yes.
Okay.
So getting them to price it correctly is more based upon, their motivation. And if they want to have less stress, is it going to be more stressful or less stressful if it's on for 6 weeks with 2 price reductions?
More stressful.
Is it going to take longer if you try to reach for a lottery than pricing it market-based or auction?
Yeah.
It's going to take more time. And ultimately, where you're going to get the most money. All right, I'm going to put these in myself here into the chat. Let's see.
Hey, Rob, I think the other thing that you also have educated me about is it's okay for us not, okay? Sometimes the best listings I get are the ones I don't get. You know what I mean? That it's okay. That's why it's a conversation. So when I'm in the mindset of it being a conversation as to whether we can work together or not, I'm not afraid of the outcome. I'm there to go to discovery of whether I can work with this person or not, whether I want to invest that $3,500 or not. right? Is it worth it to me to invest my time, my energy, my resources, my talents? Okay. Or would I rather just move on and do something more productive than get in bed with these crazy people, right? Because that's the other part of it.
Yep.
So I
So,
have to be prepared to walk away. It's okay for me to walk away.
all right. So Jay, again, I don't know, you must have had the brain food today because you're really bringing up some great points. Something that is integral to what Jay is saying is it's okay to walk away is most of the time, a seller has this mindset. You know what? I'm going to interview 3 agents. I'm going to decide who I want to work with, right? And my mindset is, hey, Jay, if you give us the opportunity to meet, we'll have a discussion and we're going to decide if we're a good fit to work together, right? Because I'm taking away your ability to make the decision on your own because there's some doubt in your mind whether or not I would even take your listing, right? So imagine that you're the Ryan Serhant of listing. You go out in an appointment, you say, hey, you know what, Jay, forget about whether, you're going to pick me. Jay, convince me that I should be your listing agent. Think about like, that's the polar opposite, right? Hey, you obviously called me, I'm really busy. I made you wait 10 days for an appointment. Now convince me that I should take your listing. Like that's an obnoxious overreach of what I'm talking about. But if you were to take it and say, you know what, Zach, the purpose of our meeting today is to have a conversation about, what we might be able to do if we decided to work together. And then at the end of the conversation, we're going to decide if we're a good fit for each other to work together, which means that you're not going to decide whether you're picking me, because I might say to you, you know what, I'm not the right agent for you.
Yeah, that I think that alone adds value too, because nobody else is going to say that. They're all going to be chasing the seller.
Right. Oh, 5%. How about 4%? How about 3.5? Like you're grabbing at their shoestrings instead of them coming at yours.
Yeah.
So let me put this in that. Hey, Mr. Seller, can you let me know in order of priority? Can you rank in order of priority? Mr. Seller, can you? Already.
So Rob, and that leads back to what we started with the door knocking, by the way. If I understand that I can go door knock for 2 hours and make $10,000, that it would be a better, more productive use of my time than taking an overpriced listing, doing all the work associated with getting the photographer there, getting the house prepped, doing all those things. Is it more constructive in my business to go and knock on doors or to get involved with this person and whatever their needs, wants, or desires are? And how are they going to work with me? Are they going to be cooperative? Or are they going to be difficult? Is it going to be a fight the whole time? Are they going to take direction from the professional? Well, if they're not going to take direction from the professional, what am I doing there?
Yeah.
They're going to do whatever they want anyway. Why am I there? Who's the professional in the relationship is the question I have to ask myself. You don't know what you're doing, but yet you want to fly the plane.
Right. And there's something that I want to put out there, especially for our newer agents and our Florida team, is if I'm in the state and you have a listing and you're uncomfortable about that appointment, or you would like to have a different perspective, I volunteer to go out there and try these strategies in front of you. And I have a really, really high standard of making sure that I don't have a bad day when I do that. And my track record is very high. I've even gone out on a listing appointment where they said that they weren't going to list with us. I don't know, Maria, are you still on the call? And I think I saw Maria earlier, or Amy. Roan quit. We had this is akin to, for our Florida group, if you have an office in Pompano, and then you get a listing appointment in Palm Beach. you're in a completely different market. The client said, hey, you know what? Amy's energy and enthusiasm is contagious, but I'm not going to list with an office, 25 minutes outside that's not in a exclusive community like, this one was in Rumson. And he goes, you can come first, but I'm going to pick from these 3 people. That was the true story. And guess who never got to present? The other 3 people. And it's not because we had a resume of doing more business in Rumson. It's because our communication skill was better. Okay. And in that process, my strategy was to build a tremendous amount of trust and rapport as they walk me through the house. And that's a skill set that a lot of people lack. You might be great at marketing real estate. You might know all the ins and outs of the comps, but if you can't build trust and rapport during that process, you're making your job a hell of a lot harder than it needs to be. Okay. And you're going to see your percentages, your closing percentages, drop off. So anyway, I want to thank our guest speakers, Pavla Gibson from our plantation office. If you have any referrals, down to Broward County, keep Pavla in mind. Jay Latanzio, Central Jersey, Middlesex Union, and Zach, kind of in the same neighborhood as Jay. But if you have any business that you want to refer, and hopefully speakers, you don't mind if your peers reach out to you if they have any questions based upon what you said.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, anyway, this is amazing.
Give service to others, Rob.
Yeah, be a value. Yep. So and Jay, even just the communication style, didn't that increase your average commission significantly?
Well, I mean, it starts from a mindset of value. Do I have value in this transaction? And what is the value that I bring? And there's no question if I've laid it out and given my value proposition the right way, they almost invariably sign. It's like a foregone conclusion because I demonstrate the value that I bring to the table and the belief that I do bring value. Because Rob, I work harder than any other agent. So I can guarantee them that I'm going to do more for them to get the house sold than anybody else, because I do. It's crazy.
Who's your biggest competition in North Edison?
My biggest competition, me. Me getting out and knocking on more doors.
and you demonstrating the value proposition that you have. And for those of you who are here, and I'm going to wrap this up in a minute and a half, I promise. But Jay is so over the top. You have a really strong background in construction. It's not uncommon for Jay to find somebody to fix the roof for the cheapest price. I think I've even seen Jay in social media power washing a fence and a house. Have you done things like that, Jay?
I have, and I do.
And
right?
and does your competition do that?
No. So in a listing appointment, what do I know? That I'm going to do more. Okay. So much for Robert Dukansky guaranteeing to get your house sold. What's he going to do? Okay. To help you get the house sold. He's going to show up and he's going to sign paperwork and he's going to take pictures. Well, that's great for Rob Dukansky, but is that really what everybody needs to prep their house for sale to get them the highest priced? No, there's things that need to be done. So we need to do those things. And if that means we have to chip in and help these people to get there, then we chip in and help these people to get there. At least that's my mindset about it.
Yeah.
Right. So as long as you know that your biggest, and that's another huge paradigm shift, is your biggest competition is usually yourself. Because I personally have never been on a listing conversation where the other 2 agents were in the room with me and they're sitting around the table. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's just never happened to me. So therefore, my biggest competition when I'm sitting with the decision makers is solely myself. And usually when we lose something, it's something that we did.
And it's my mindset and my confidence therein.
Yep. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for attending today. I hope you got a couple of tips from this. And again, thank you to our host here. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Hi, Rob. Great session.
Have a good week.
Bye.